Hey guys, as far as progress today, I was able to finish one of the positive battery ends, and I did that instead of using pop rivets. I used a bolt on there, a stainless steel bolt, so that should give you a good solid connection there, and it's not going to shift around at all. But still, just to be safe, every time you put your batteries back in, I would wiggle that spring and make sure that it's not loose. But I really don't think it's going to go anywhere this way. There was something else. Uh, oh yeah, I'm only building two of them at a time right now, just because I really don't have the room at the moment to work on more than that. As soon as I get these out of the way, I'll make some more room in there, and then I'll be able to work on more than two at a time. But as things are right now, it would just get really confusing because it's pretty cluttered back there. So at least I'm moving a little faster than I thought I would. So a couple of you have said that you enjoyed that story from the other day. So I figured, well, since two of you have said that, maybe a couple more of you would like some more stories. So today I took you guys to work and I just kind of talked about some of my quirks. And there's another story in there for those of you guys who are interested. Uh, all right, I'll see you tomorrow. Oh, I just checked my email, and the spring order was canceled for one reason or the other. I don't know what happened. It's kind of weird. I looked for the description of the springs, try to figure out more what they were, and the only thing in the description was that it was a woman trying to get rid of her late husband's stuff. Oh, so I've got a backup plan, but baffling. A few of you said that you really enjoyed that story, so I figured why not tell a couple of the stories that I've had happen along the way. Before I begin, got a couple of things you guys should know about me. When I was little, we would have supper over at the grandparents' house, and my brother, he has quite the imagination. He would tell my grandfather these stories, and boy, they were some whoppers. And I was always the quiet one. He was always the really outspoken one. So he would just lay it on really thick, and I'd just sit there and listen and listen and listen. And when he finished, my grandfather, he would play into it. And I guess I was probably, 6, 7, 8 years old. And of course, I thought this was just a terrible disservice to my grandfather that, he's just sitting there taking all this in as if it were fact, and my brother's just doing him a terrible disservice. The other thing that pissed me off was I didn't really talk that much, so I figured what I had to say was obviously more important than what he had to say, because what he had to say was just total bullshit. So, as soon as he would finish his story, I would stop playing with whatever I was playing with and just address my grandfather and say, well, that's not exactly how it happened. And then I would go through and the greatest factual recollection I could come up with. And oh man, that used to piss my brother off. So, I tend to not exaggerate very much. You can take that with a grain of salt for what it's worth. I'm just somebody on YouTube. But I do try to give a factual encounter of pretty much everything. That means a lot of the stuff is mundane that happens to me because I live in the real world. But anyway, a story. Okay. One of my would-be customers, hang on just a minute. I'm trying to use my Dremel tool, but I can't use it at the same time as I talk to you guys. Okay. Where was I? One of my would-be customers, he mentioned something over the weekend, and that he had one of these, and it was the Strafe Mark IV, and I didn't remember it off the bat, and I asked him a little bit about it, and what it is it's not, calling it a BB machine gun is a stretch, but what it is it shoots. They've got two models. One of them shoots airsoft pellets, and the other one shoots BBs. And so I was looking at a couple of videos about it, and it slowly came back to me what it was. It uses the Venturi Effect, just like the Lark BB machine gun, and that is, it's basically just storage device for BBs, and the way it gets them out of it is it has like a tube that, and on the other side of the tube there's all these BBs or projectiles, and it blows air over the tube, and when it does that it sucks them up and throws them out of the barrel. Runs off of like shop pressure 150 psi. And as I was watching these videos, I remembered that when I was going through, somebody had mentioned that when I hit 4,000, it might be the fastest single barrel gun in the world. So I was trying to research it and do my due diligence because I wanted to get Guinness World Records to take a look at it, and I couldn't find. They asked me when I did the application for that, they asked me to be very specific. So in the application I was very specific in that it did not use the Venturi effect. And well, maybe a month or so went by. I don't really remember how much time. But one of the things that they asked for on the application was to be very specific about it. And I think maybe I was a little bit too specific. Might here, I'll show you those emails. So anyway, they really weren't interested in it. Now about the Strafe Mark IV. Yeah, it's basically a continuation of the Lark. I can't remember the designation number for the Lark. But I've done a video on it before, and they ran off of Freon, the good stuff, before they outlawed it. And a lot of people would replace the thing with the shop compressor. I did a video on this, so I'm not going to go very far into it, but I'll put a card up somewhere up there if you're interested in that. So anyway, I was pretty much, I wouldn't say against, I just didn't want 4,000 rounds a minute through a Drost getting confused with the Venturi Effect. It looks like they still sell those guns if you guys are interested in them. I think they're a little bit less expensive than what I'm offering, but it's considerably less powerful. I wouldn't even put them in the same category, but it's still pretty cool, of course. So what I'm doing right now is I'm making I got a little few extra marks on this one, but this is going to be what the battery tab, the spring, connects to. Another thing I wanted to tell you guys about was that I really don't like talking on the phone. Now, if it's for something like, if you email me and you've got a whole bunch of questions, of course, yeah, I'll talk on the phone about that, because I'd rather do that than type everything out. And if there's any other questions that spur during the phone conversation, that can be addressed quickly right there, and I don't forget to address anything in emails, because in emails, when there's a lot of questions, I'll have to go back to the email and look at, did I get everything, or else I'll miss something. So I don't mind talking on the phone if it's something like that, but if it's like, if you're one of those people who like to talk on the phone, and I seem to be getting short with you when you're in the Piggly Wiggly and you're in the checkout line talking to Nadine on your Bluetooth, and I start to get short with you, that's why. I just don't like talking on the phone. The reason is, one of the reasons is that I'm a pretty fidgety kind of guy in a purposeful way. I like to be doing something with my hands. And if I'm talking to somebody other than this, I'm talking to a camera, but if I'm talking to somebody just about absolutely nothing, I don't have the capacity up here to focus on what I'm doing down here and carry on a conversation. When I And if you try to call me and it goes to voicemail, I will get back to you. But some people don't like that I don't have voicemail. They actually get pissed about that. And don't worry, I have caller ID. I will see that you called and I will get back to you as soon as I can. But for the most part, please just text me. Unless it's, something long and drawn out. But back when I was in my 20s, I was working surveying up in Charlotte and the surrounding area. And my mom was teaching school up there. And for some reason, whenever she got off of work, we both lived in Rock Hill at the time, but for some reason, whenever she'd get off work, it was like as soon as she got in the car, she would fumble around and get her Bluetooth out and call me and just talk about absolutely nothing. And it drove me insane. So I stopped answering the phone because I knew that she was just going to talk and talk and talk. And I don't really like to talk unless it's about something. And pretty introverted. So most of the time what ends up happening is I just end up listening. And because I'm concentrated on what you're saying, I don't end up really talking a lot. So, by all means, if there's something really bad, if some bad stuff's going down in your life and you don't have anybody to talk to, by all means, give me a call. I'll be happy to listen to you. But you know what I mean about like really bad stuff. So that's fine. I will definitely lend you an ear if you need it that way. It's sometimes kind of nice to be able to talk to a stranger, but I know a lot of you guys think you know me, so that's completely fine. I'd be happy to talk to you about things like that because we all go through this stuff, and it is sometimes just nice to know that there are actually other people out there who go through the same thing. We're all on this planet and on this great big spaceship together, and sometimes it feels like we're so far apart. But anyway, so what I did was I stopped answering the phone, and then she continued to call, and it would go right to voicemail, and she would literally fill out my voicemail every day, just keep talking until it ran out. And to get rid of that notification, I would actually have to let it play, and then I could delete it. So that wasn't any good. And then I went to the Verizon store and I said, look, I don't want voicemail. Take this off. So they're like, why don't you want voicemail? It's like, I just don't want it. I don't like it. Get it off. He's like, okay, if you ever want it, you can always come back. It's kind of like trying to leave Facebook. So I had him take it off. And that ended that. Alright, guys, I'm gonna get busy and I will let y'all know how much progress I make today. Yeah, I mentioned yesterday, I'm always amazed at how little I can get done in a day. That's because a lot of these parts have to be handmade and hand fitted. And you might also be wondering, well, Mason, all this talk about telephones, and we don't have your phone number. How do we call you? So, yeah, that part's going to fit in there, and we'll mount our spring to it. Yeah, if you buy a gun from me and you want my phone number, you get it absolutely. That's in case you need a quick answer with something like how do I put the batteries in? Because you got to put these batteries in negative side down, and if you don't remember that in this video and you need a quick answer, I'm pretty quick getting back with email, quicker with text. But if you call me, if you need yes, no answers in my book don't really require an entire phone conversation. Speaking of phone conversations, a couple of years ago, this woman wanted me to build a Blackbird for her. And she's like, in the comment section, she's like, hey, can you please call me? I really want you to build a Blackbird for me. And she left her phone number right there. So I can't remember how I got in touch with her. I think I told her to email me. I think what I did was I deleted, or I wrote a comment, I commented to it, and then I deleted her post. But guys, don't put your phone number down there. It goes without saying, but yeah, just that's not a good idea. There was something I wanted to say about the Strafe Mark IV. If you watch videos on it, you can see this phenomenon when it's using the airsoft BBs. If you're watching it, where the guy's shooting stuff with it, you'll see the BBs flying out, and there's, I don't know, not really shooting at a great distance, but you'll see them in a straight line. You don't see them dropping. Now, I'm not an expert on that gun by any means. I don't really know much about it. But from what I've read, it takes 150 psi, and it'll shoot BBs, steel BBs, at like a maximum of 225 feet per second, and the airsoft stuff at about 625, I think. That's what his claim is. But it does do a phenomenon that the Superbird and Freebird also do, except you can see it a lot better because when it's shooting those airsoft BBs, you can see it a lot better because they're going a lot slower and they're white and they're bigger. Now, what that is depending on your air pressure you're running, the velocity, and how close the projectiles are together. At some point, what happens is they get close enough to each other that they'll actually start drifting behind one another in an area of low pressure that the one in front of it has created. So in the beginning of a long burst, what happens is you have the ones in front that don't necessarily, they're not going to go as far or have as much power as the ones behind it. It's kind of the same principle as turning on a hose. So if you've got, like, say, a burst of 100, at some point in there, they're all going to be going really far, and there's not going to be much resistance, not much air resistance. So they're going to hit their target at a lot further distance with a lot more force than uh, it would be just a single projectile cutting itself through the air. And with the Superbirds and Freebirds running 1,000, 1,600 psi, at 5K, that is definitely going on. Some of you guys may have seen the video of that Bruce sent me where he's just chewing up a toilet at over 100 yards. That's what's going on there. You're not going to be able to do that with a single shot BB gun, even if you did have the same pressures. So that's a really interesting phenomenon that the two platforms share. Other than that, they're completely different.